Um, well, I'm Carlos Pollard Jr. I am started off as a redistricting fellow with Power Coalition, and I'm now making my way into a newer role, the volunteer and campus coordinator. And I can pass it to Rochelle.
Absolutely. Hello, I'm Rochelle Wilcox. I am the Executive Director of Wilcox Academy of Early Learning. We have 3 early learning centers in the greater New Orleans area, in addition to being the co-founder of For Providers by Providers, which is an advocacy agency that is led by providers across the state of Louisiana.
Okay, Mr. Hamilton.
Sure. Hello, I'm Hamilton Simons Jones. I am a consultant and currently the secretary of the Yes for NOLA Kids campaign, and have been working on issues affecting children and young people for about 20 years here in New Orleans.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Courtney.
Hi, everyone. I am Courtney Rogers, the Director of Policy and Advocacy at Agenda for Children.
Alrighty, thank y'all for joining us today. So Coffee Chats is a series that Power Coalition does to provide more information behind different initiatives that's going on statewide. So Coffee Chats are just our little niche to get the community involved, right? So I started Coffee Chats. Coffee Chats started before me. But I started Coffee Chats during the redistricting cycle because redistricting was so much to unpack in just one sitting, right? So we started doing Coffee Chats to break down each topic within redistricting. So today, as you all know, we have a proposition on the ballot, say yes to NOLA kids, and we want to just really break this down today, right? For the community to really understand what's on the ballot, what exactly they're voting for, and how it's going to affect their lives. Welcome to another Coffee Chat series. And, as I stated, elections matter. And this one might not have an elected official running often, but this one also matters as well. This election is about the kids. There's only one thing on the ballot, and it will increase funding for early education for low-income children. Today, we are joined by 3 people who will give us further insight into this millage, and its importance. Today, we have Rochelle Wilcox. She already introduced herself, and Hamilton Simons Jones. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to Hamilton. So can you just give us some context on what Yes for NOLA Kids is, how many families will be impacted, and what is the timeline for implementation?
Sure, Carlos, thank you. And thanks for this opportunity to talk about it. So we've been part of a coordinated effort with a number of advocates and parents and providers working in early care and education for a number of years now to really expand access to early care and education in New Orleans. And beginning in 2018, we were able to advocate to get the city to make an initial investment of $750,000 to expand access to early care and education. And that investment created what's called the City Seats program, which essentially is like an early Head Start program with a focus on children birth to age 3, because that's where the biggest gap is in terms of childcare in our community. And that program we've been able to advocate each year to grow it. So it's now got $3 million in the city budget that serves 200 children, and it's been able to access a state matching fund to double the amount of funding and the amount of children served. But the challenge is, first off, it comes very far from serving all of the need. We still have about 8,300 low-income children under age 4 that don't have access to quality early childhood education that their families can afford. And then secondly, every year we have to go back and advocate and try to figure out, are we going to have money next year to make sure these 1-year-olds have a spot at the end of the summer, and to make sure that centers like Rochelle's and the 21 other centers that are participating know that this program, they're going to be able to keep their teachers on board and all of that to be able to do this. So we've been working for a long time to get to a dedicated funding source that we can count on every year. And that is where we are now, is what's on the ballot with early voting through tomorrow and Election Day, April 30th. is an opportunity to expand the City Seats program so that it would directly, city dollars would serve 1,000 children. And then with the state match, that could serve an additional 1,000 children. So it'd be a total of 2,000 children. Now that represents the largest expansion of access to high quality early care and education for young children in at least a generation in this community, probably since the creation of early Head Start and Head Start programs. And so just, it's just an absolutely inspiring opportunity to do something that we know we've been needing to do for years and years to make sure we expand access to early care and education. And then just to answer the question about the timeline. Oh, so the other thing I'll say is, right, it directly, we directly reach those 2,000 families, and Rochelle and Courtney can talk about, there are other families, right? There's the families of the childcare teachers. There are the families of the children that are also attending the center that are benefiting from stable funding to those childcare centers, higher quality seats, professional development of teachers, wraparound supports that support all of the children and families in those centers. So while the direct impact are those 2,000, it has a much, much bigger impact on families across the city. So a timeline for implementation: early voting April 30th. We need it to pass. We need every single person to turn out and turn everybody out, because this is the only thing on the ballot and people are not thinking about elections, and there's just a natural apathy about taxes and any sort of vote, right? And passes in April, it would go into effect starting in January of 2023. And then there would be a period of ramping up the program so that really fall, kind of August 2023 is when the full ramp up would begin. And, in the meantime, the expansion of the program to more centers, the enrollment of families and all that sort of stuff would happen in the meantime.
Okay, thank you, Hamilton. And you spoke on briefly about the data. Courtney, can you expound on the data? Like, what does the data say?
Sure. Thank you for that question. So we know that the data shows that Louisiana is behind in education. We're actually ranked 48th as a state, and specific to Orleans Parish, it's only 1/3 of our third graders that are actually reading at grade level. And so in order for us to change this trajectory, the research shows that investing in early childcare and education is one of the best ways to do it. It's a smart investment to invest in our youngest learners. And that's because there's so many benefits for early care and education. Children who participate in high quality programs are more likely to read at grade level. They're more likely to graduate high school. They're more likely to become homeowners and have higher paying wages when they become older, and just become productive members of our society. And so many benefits. There's also economic benefits, because we know that the cost of childcare is extremely expensive. And so in order for parents to work, they have to have childcare, but in order to afford childcare, they have to have a job. And so that puts a lot of parents in a tough situation. There's data that shows that 16% of parents, well, more than 16% of parents have actually quit their jobs and exited the workforce because of the lack of childcare options. And so this is costing our state over $1.3 billion annually. And so this is just a smart investment all around. It's going to benefit our kids, it's going to benefit families, and it is also going to benefit Orleans Parish as a whole.
Thank you, Courtney, for that. And thank you for really expounding on the data and how important it is to invest in children, right? And Rochelle already introduced herself. Rochelle, as a provider, you understand how important investing in early childhood education is. Can you please explain and share your insight on why this investment is crucial for the city of New Orleans?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having us. So I want to say that what is most important is the fact that this is specifically focused on infants and toddlers. When most of the time when people talk about early care and education, they're talking about pre-K4 or 4-year-olds. And I've often said this, but there's no mama that goes into the hospital and comes out with a 4-year-old. Like, she has not birthed a 4-year-old. That just does that. That's not how it works. So when we talk about the brain development and we talk about brain architecture, children learn 80% of what they're going to learn in those first 1,000 days, that birth through age 3. So this is why this investment is so important, is because we're going to catch them at their most influential, at the height of their learning, at the height of when their brain is absorbing all of the things that we can pour into them. And when we're talking about high quality early learning centers, we're talking about 4-to-1 ratio. We're not the state. For infants and toddlers, there can be 7 children to 1 teacher inside of a classroom. This program does not, this program doubles down or really focuses on best practices, where it is 4 children to 1 teacher. In addition to that, because of the funding, we've been able to increase teacher salaries, teacher wages, where we were on average paying teachers between $9 and $10. We've been able to increase teacher wages from $14 to $16 an hour. Paying teacher living wages. Over this term with City Seats, I've seen teachers purchase homes, buy new cars, being able to take their families on vacation. This allows teachers to stay in the field that they love and live their American dream, instead of having to leave this field that we need teachers to stay in and do the critical work during this pivotal time of brain development, instead of going to get a job at Amazon that they really don't want. So this is why it is the most important work. In addition to, when we talk about the whole child, it not only impacts this quality teacher-child interactions that we're having, but moms and dads get to go to work. As you probably know, the pandemic has allowed parents or people on a whole to rethink what I want to do with my life, with my career. So more often parents want to, they might have changed their what they're going to do as far as education. So this allows them to go back and go to school, go to work, and because they know that their child is going to be in a high quality early learning center. Prior to this funding, we would have to lay off staff every summer. But this funding is year round, full day. So it has really, really allowed the economy and to stabilize early learning and stabilize the economy. When we get to open our doors, people get to go to work.
And can I just add one thing there? That was amazing, Rochelle, like all the amazing benefits of early care and education. And we can do this for $5.20 a month. Like, that is the cost to taxpayers, and all the great benefits that we'll see just by making that small investment, a cup of coffee a month for children can make so much change.
One of the other things that I also neglected to mention about this amazing program, I'm sorry, Carlos, I didn't let you answer another question, but I just want to make sure that people really get to understand the impact that this program has, are the wraparound services. So prior to this, even though we saw things in our little people, we didn't have the touch point. We didn't have the resources to say, hey, we see something, this child might need some additional services. Well, within 45 days of the little person coming into school, we do screeners. There's ages and stages and social and emotional screeners that we get to do right away. And not only that, not that we just do the screeners, there is another point person where we can say, okay, this child is not scoring where we need them to score. There's not a pass or fail. I want people to understand, it's not like this child has failed, but we want to make sure that there is a part where if the child needs early steps, or there might be a speech issue, or there might be a hearing issue, or dental or vision, they get all of these screenings with this program. And so not only that, if they need those services, the parent doesn't have to take them, leave work and take them to speech services. Those services are provided inside of the center. So that is another benefit of the program. Just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Yeah, absolutely. Morgan asked, can one of the speakers talk about the survey the Policy Institute did with the likely voters and how they were in support?
I could talk about that. So the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children did a poll of likely voters right after Mardi Gras to gauge support for this investment. And they found that across the board, regardless of age, 79% of voters supported additional investment in early childhood education programs. And, you would expect younger voters, who often may have young children, and that's true, right? It came out at 82 and 87%. 82% for 18 to 34-year-olds, 87% for 35 to 49-year-olds. But, folks 65 and older who are often grandparents, who are often tasked with being responsible for young children, especially after the last 2 years, 78% of those folks also said this is a very important investment. So there's been very strong support, and it's not just by different age groups, but really across the city, where pretty consistently, and we've polled a number of times over the years, pretty consistently folks say, I do want my tax dollars, no matter what neighborhood I live in, I want my tax dollars invested in expanding early childhood education. And I'm willing to tax myself a little more if I need to make sure it happens, because we recognize it's important. So it's been really, and I think that has helped shape the proposition that is on the ballot, is that feedback from voters, not just in March, but over the years.
Yeah, thank you, Hamilton. And now I just want to kind of open up the space for anyone else to, if you all have anything else to add, or if any of the participants have any questions to ask for you all as they're making their decision before they go and vote.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Can any of the people, any of the speakers talk about the various people that are sitting at the table through this coalition? I definitely think that this is a broadband coalition support. So you have various entities that are sitting at the table. I know we have businesses and those kinds of things. Can any?
Absolutely. I got a slide with a whole bunch of logos on it if you want to see them, because I probably can't list them all, but it won't let me share screen.
Yeah, let me give you access.
Great, thanks, Carlos.
You're welcome. You should be able to share now.
All right, cool.
And then Rochelle, maybe also after Hamilton kind of speaks about that, you could also talk about what you said it a little bit in your amazing overview, but what parents need and why they might not have access to childcare or something like that, like what you're hearing from the parents as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the fact is that, as I think Courtney said it earlier, it costs too much. Early care and education is just expensive. And part of this is, part of it is that what it costs for an infant and toddler specifically, and the ratios that we have, just outweighs what a parent can pay. And at the rate that we want to be able to pay our teachers, tier 1 curriculums, materials and supplies. We just want to make sure that we are providing our little people with the best experiences, developmentally appropriate experiences that we can, that they deserve, not that we can, but that they deserve, in order to make sure that they are prepared for school. And that is just not academic rigor, but that also means that there's social emotional component as well. A lot of what we are seeing today with our teenagers and our adolescents is things that they might not have received in early care and education, like impulse control, conflict resolution, just boundaries, how to, like our 1 and 2 year olds have a peace corner. They get to talk about their problems, why, you know, you took something from me, and then how we can work it out. Okay, so those are some of the things that we talk about right now in this space where we have a space of yes. And not only that, when we talk about the parent piece, we have parent corners, right? We have we provide those pieces where parents, when we take that holistic approach, we provide parents with those pieces where their voices are heard, where we can say, where they can say, you know what, Ms. Wilcox, or whatever provider it is, I don't understand something. Can you explain this to me? Or if they, and so this is their first place where they can advocate for their child and we can explain something. So we have parent meetings where we talk about what's developmentally appropriate, what is going on with them, so that they feel more comfortable. We give them those little nuggets that they can reinforce what we're doing at school. So it is, the other piece is what we are doing here, they get to reinforce at home. And not only that, is that they also see the importance of school, so that they're not missing school. They're at school every day. They get to know that school is a partnership. They have school to home notes. So it is something that they you know, right now, the point that I'm making is that what I see that is happening right now is that there is a divide or a disconnect in our schools, and they get to build that early on when children start school in infancy. They get to build that trust with the caregivers, with the people that are caring for and teaching those social emotional skills and those academic rigor skills, and preparing those little people for school, and preparing our parents for what school should be and why it's important going forward. But to answer your question, Morgan, parents cannot afford it. And that is why it is so important to have full day, every day care. And they're often marginalized. They're often our children that are low income, children that look just like me, are often marginalized and not heard of. Their parents, they don't usually have a voice. They're used to having things done for them or to them and saying, hey, this is what works for you, so go ahead, you can go ahead and get this. This gives them a choice. This gives them a vote. This gives them an opportunity to say, you know what, here are all of these high quality early learning centers. We have vetted them. There's a process. Not everybody's going to get these seats. They will go through, and Courtney can probably talk about the process. There's a vetting process that says, yes, you meet the criteria to take these seats, because we want to make sure that our little people are in really good places where they're going to get all that they need.
Courtney, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
I was just going to speak to Morgan's question about the partners. I mean, I put the slide up. There's a very broad coalition, right? From the New Orleans Chamber of Commerce and the Business Council to groups like the Power Coalition and the People's DA Coalition. It's really across the aisle, from, the Democrats to the Republicans to the, more progressive groups, as well as folks working on a number of issues. I mean, of course, folks working in early care and education that understand this, but a lot of groups that work all the way down the youth development pipeline, working with older youth, as well as folks focused on health and mental health, because they recognize the importance of these investments early on. Women's groups, criminal justice reform groups. So there's a broad coalition. And, sometimes we've been doing a lot of different community presentations. And I did one the other day, and the president of the school board talked about how the school board supports it, the full city council supports it, the mayor supports it, the DA supports it, most of our delegation, in Baton Rouge supports it. Troy Carter supports it, and that there's very little that all those folks actually agree on when it comes to public policy. And this is absolutely one of those things. So it's been an honor to be part of a coalition, and all those names are great. But at the end of the day, what's going to make the difference is people like the folks on this call going to the polls and telling your friends and family and colleagues and loved ones to go to the polls too. That's what's going to pass this.
Right. And, Hamilton, you briefly spoke about the coalitions and the importance behind it. And really all of these coalitions centering community, all of these organizations centering community. And I think that what I really like about the process is how you all make sure that everyone was at the table, right? Like Rochelle as a provider, because, we often say people who are closer to the problem are closer to the solution. So Courtney, can you explain the vetting process and how these seats will be passed out, or who gets the seats?
Yes, so currently we have 22 centers that participate in the City Seats program. And these are centers that are small businesses. Majority of them are owned by women of color. And it provides opportunities, and majority of the teachers are also women of color. So it really provides opportunities for the Black and Brown community. But the centers participate in a application process. There is a rubric of criteria that they have to meet, have to be type 3 centers. They have to be approved by the state. They have to offer high quality education. And so we go through that application process with everyone. And if you meet the criteria, you are selected to be a City Seats provider. And the other part of that is the enrollment process, which is handled by NOLA PS. That's where parents go in, they complete their application. NOLA PS tells them what seats they qualify for based off of work requirements or income requirements, things of that nature. And then they're matched with a seat. So that's how we work together as co-leads in the No Eating Project to ensure that children have access to those high quality seats.
I do thank y'all. And if anyone else do not have questions, I do want to allow each speaker to maybe give a brief closing.
I have a question.
Yes.
Congratulations to those of you who have been moving this campaign forward. One thing I'm not clear about, or that you haven't said clearly, is so there are 22 centers now that qualify. Will any of this money go towards preparing the way for more centers, more to qualify? What will be the ways in which the staff in the centers that are not at the top of the heap right now will be able to participate if there is funding available?
You want me to take this, Hamilton?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll give you a full breakdown of the dollars. So the millage is projected to bring in $21 million annually. Of that $21 million, 70% of that is going to go directly towards the seats and wraparound services for children. And then in the initial years of the program, there's an additional amount of money that's being set aside to expand the workforce and to expand the physical infrastructure. So there'll be grants given out to build new facilities, to expand current facilities. And so all of that has been worked in the plan, because we know that when this thing passes, and I say when, because it will, on April 30th, that we won't have enough facilities. We don't have enough buildings for it. We know that. And so we have built money into the plan to allow for those grants to expand access. Also, there's also dollars included in there to do outreach to ensure that parents know that these seats are available and that they're completing the application process through NOLA PS. So we really thought about it, and we can say, roughly over 90% of the funds are going towards expanding access. So expanding the seats, doing the outreach campaign, and also expanding facilities.
One other thing to add to that, just to be clear, is there are 22 centers participating in the program right now. More than that actually qualify currently. There's just not enough seats to have more centers participate currently. So there's a set of, you're right, there's a set of centers that probably don't qualify currently that will need supports, and that's part of what Courtney's speaking to. But there's also a set of centers that do qualify, but there just wasn't enough seats and money to go around. And so, they're basically waiting and ready to, provide this care once the resources are there.
Great, that's good news. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to actually give a personal testimony. So, although I'm no longer a child, right? But I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I grew up in the East. And my mom had me really young, actually. My mom had me a sophomore in high school. So funds were low, right? And many times after my mom graduated high school and she went on and started her college career, many times, more than many, every time I had to go to class with my mom because it was just did not have access to childhood to childcare and different things, right? So that's my own personal testimony, like someone who's sitting at the table right now, expressing how one, crucial it is to invest into early childhood education, and two, how this can help families across the city. I think now is a great time for maybe Hamilton, Rochelle, and then Courtney to give some closing.
Got it in that order. Yeah, I just thank you all for being here and for your interest in this issue. And I'm just going to reiterate, we are most of the way through early voting and turnout is very low right now. And that is concerning, right? I mean, that it's going to be really important for people to go out and vote yes, and really bring your folks out. I think the other thing to say about that is, this is just, it's the only thing on the ballot, and this is our chance. I don't know that we get another chance at this one. The stars have lined up. We had, a full support of the council to get this on the ballot. And, this is one of the best opportunities in my lifetime I've ever experienced to expand access to childcare. I started working in childcare originally when I was 17 years old, and am honored to come back and work on it in this way. And so just want to say, go out and vote yes, and tell all your friends. And the other thing I'll say is, the website, www.yesfornolakids.com, has there's opportunities to volunteer. You can, put in a request for a yard sign. You can get sample social media off of that website. So there's lots of resources on there as well. You could also, there's FAQs and things to get more information. So also would encourage people to check out www.yesfornolakids.com.
So it has been a very long time. I've been in early care and education for over 20 years, and I have never seen a time where people outside of the people that are regularly working in early care and education really cared enough to say, you know what, we're going to invest in our youngest learners. And it is an exciting time. And, people often say, hey, you have my support. Well, now it's time to put your vote where your support is, right? Now it's time to put your money where your support is. If we want to really change a generation, if we really want to see our city change for the better, the trajectory of our families change, this is the way to do it. The fact is that as early learning center workers and as a provider, we are often not looked at. We're often not valued. And what does that say? It shows in the street. It shows in our streets every day. What it's saying? This is the way to change it. And what I tell my teachers and my families, and I even tell myself every day, it's like, we matter. One day they're gonna figure out that this is where we change the world. And on April 30th, we get that opportunity to really make a difference. So I'm asking that along with all of my family and friends, that you go out and help me change the world, help us change the world. So please vote yes. And thank you.
All right, and lastly, so I'll share a short story here. So prior to me stepping into policy, I was a school-based social worker. And I remember having an interaction with a kid on the first day of school. He was starting kindergarten for the first time, and he was so excited. He gave me a high five. He went off to class ready to learn. And not even 6 weeks later, he was referred to me as a school social worker because he just wasn't prepared. He was having trouble staying focused, having trouble staying in his seat. And so when I brought him in to talk to him, and his mom about, what's the situation, why is things the way they are? And we found out that he had never participated in any type of early learning prior to coming to kindergarten. And so for me, it opened my eyes to the importance of early care and education in that moment, and how important that is, because I never want to see a kid show up to school so excited for kindergarten and then, give up later because they feel like they're not prepared. He's like, I'm always getting fussed at. I don't know this stuff. I don't even know how to hold my pencil. My teacher is fussing at me. And these are things that this child could have learned before if he had access to high quality early care and education. So this is just very important that we invest in our children and our youngest learners so that they have those strong educational foundations and that they grow up and are excited about learning and actually have that drive that he had on the first day of school, that they can keep that, throughout, because they show up prepared. And so vote yes, April 30th. This thing is amazing. It can be transformative to children across Orleans. And hopefully, once we set the stage in Orleans, then other parishes do the same thing. And so, yeah, that's it. Vote yes.
Yes, thank y'all so much for sharing y'all time with us in this space to provide more information on this proposition. And Malcolm X once said that education is a passport to the future, right? So it's extremely important that we invest into the kids of New Orleans. Just some closing parts on our end. Voters in every district and demographic want increased access to early care and education and support expansion of early child care. So these are the last days of early voting this weekend, and then on election day, April 30th, is we're trying to we're pushing folks to go vote in early voting and on election day on April 30th. So it's critical for our children and families to thrive. If you need any information about polling sites, what you need to bring to the polls to vote, or any election concerns, you can visit powercoalition.org on everything that you need, or you can email me, cpollard@powercoalition.org. We do a lot of election work on election day, and just like watching the polls to make sure everything goes great and people have access to their democracy. So again, thank y'all so much for sharing y'all time with us. Thank y'all so much for sharing this much needed information. And like these illuminaries said, go vote yes on April 30th, or go vote today. Thank y'all. And I'll be sure to share the recording with everyone.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks,
Bye.
y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.